Well, here we are. We are live on all channels. Troy Francis, Jack Napier. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. We had some technical difficulties, but everything is now solved. So good to see you again, sir. How is your day so far?
It's all right, man. I'm pretty tired already, to be honest. I've been getting up. I've been doing some writing. I'm working on a book this month, and I'm trying to do a set word count every day. And so I've obviously had to fit that in with other commitments. So I've been getting up, not hugely early, but I've been getting up early, kind of sitting down, knocking it out, as the actress said to the bishop. And it's writing's quite intense. It's quite, as you know, it's quite tiring, isn't it? Quite draining. And then on top of doing the other stuff as well.
Well, I mean, I've had it with, I'm not particularly a writer, but I kind of know what you mean. Like, even with the narrating and things like that, I just shot a video about like creating your own fitness program, the editing of that, filming it correctly, using the right words. It can be draining. Yeah. What's the book about?
It's fiction. It's about I won't say now, actually, because I just want to keep it under wraps till I'm ready. But it's a fiction thing, which I'm doing really to kickstart my writing again, because I haven't really written anything long form for a while. So I'm going to do this because I felt the inspiration to do it. And then I'm going to have some more, another couple of sort of Troy Francis dating related books for later in the year as well. So I'm getting back on the writing horse this year for sure.
Nice.
So yeah, and what are you up to?
I am making a video series now about making your own program.
That's very meta, isn't it? You're like sort of, I'm coaching you how to coach. You know.
Well, pretty much. I've always really liked the basics of working out because that's the most complicated, or people complicate that the most. Because a lot of people can't see the forest through the trees anymore. And I'm kind of like, guys, it doesn't have to be that hard. And yes, of course, like I do the personal training. And if you're interested in that, I still have one spot left.
Yeah.
Right now. But let's say for the people who can't afford that or would rather do it on their own, I thought to myself, why not give out certain information out absolutely for free? And that's where the programming comes into, because I've seen guys who started working out and they make their own program way too complicated, and the order is a bit skewed and doubtful. And I hope by creating this small little video series that I can just help a couple of guys out.
Oh, I see what you mean. So you're talking about creating their own fitness program as opposed to creating their own how to coach guys' fitness.
Oh, like that. Oh, wow. Yeah, that would have been very meta indeed. No, like only creating their own program. No, not the coaching part.
Okay. No, good stuff. Fair enough. So look, as John Watt says here, I've realized I'm getting 46 more episodes of Awesome. Well, fingers crossed, as long as we live long enough to do that. That the intention is that we're going through the book and we're going to be discussing a chapter or a law each week. I mean, let's see how this goes, because obviously, I travel around a bit, as you know. Jack has commitments also. So let's see how we go. But the idea at the moment is to do these on a weekly basis and just to touch base and sort of have a chat about each law, and also just anything that comes off of that or anything that's currently happening. Because it's quite good just to get on and have a bit of a chinwag anyway, isn't it?
No, absolutely. And it's fun catching up too.
Absolutely, yeah. So today's law, we're on law 2, gentlemen, and this is the one really about keeping your friends close and your enemies closer. So I think it says never put too much trust in friends, learn how to use enemies. So I guess we can sort of start kicking that one around. I mean, it's an interesting idea, isn't it? I wonder how important this is in the big, because you've got these 48 laws here. Are they all equally important? Are they all ones that you're not? And he even says, doesn't he, in the introduction, you're not necessarily going to use all of them and all the time. And some of them, in fact, contradict each other sometimes, don't they? Is this one really? I get what he's saying in this law, but is this something that comes up very much? I don't know how frequently this really comes up. If you see what I mean.
Well, I had to think about that before we began as well. Like, do I have a real life example of this? And not really, even though I know what he means, but I've never been in a situation where I had to choose between a friend and a so-called enemy. Now, mind you, Robert Greene likes to use he likes to exaggerate in his usage of words. Same thing as in the law of seduction, where it's like choose the correct victim.
Your victim. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which we nearly got cancelled for a couple of years ago.
Yep, I remember that. So it's not specifically that he means enemy, but how I always interpret it as was not specifically a friend. So even a stranger. And what you'll notice is that strangers or people who don't like you, when you hire them for something, they tend to put more effort into it because their reputation as a tradesman is on the line instead of like that friend. Not consciously, but unconsciously, they'll think, oh, we're buddies anyway. And well, he doesn't pay me that much, so I can like skate off the edges here and there a bit. So you'll not, the work you're getting won't be as good as somebody whose reputation as a tradesman hangs from it.
Yeah, no, indeed. So just to explain to people if they haven't read the book, or just to put some context into what we're talking about here. So basically, this is all about how if you choose to work with a friend or choose to go into, some kind of arrangement, business arrangement or something like this with a friend, that can be fraught with difficulties because that friend could either be complacent or may actually be envious of you and be more keen, ironically, to stab you in the back than than what he calls an enemy. So what Greene recommends instead, and he gives some interesting examples of this, is that you actually select somebody who may have been a foe or may have been opposed to you before and bring them into the fold. And the idea is that in bringing that person into the fold, they're so grateful to you because it's like, oh wow, he's he used to be my enemy and now he's pulling me in and he wants my opinion on this thing, or he wants to involve me in this thing. The person is so grateful to you that actually they are more loyal, ironically, than the friend would have been. So does that mean on this podcast, instead of you and me doing it, Jack, we should bring in like John Anthony or something?
I don't think he would be very welcome to the invitation, in all honesty. I don't think he would appreciate that much. But
but he does say, and as always with the chapters in this book with the different laws, there's a reversal at the end, isn't there? And he does say, well, look, sometimes grudgingly he sort of says, well, sometimes it is better to work with a friend, but he sort of says something like, so then you can get them to take the fall if something goes wrong. So if this podcast massively bombs, I can just say, oh, well, it was all Jack Napier's fault. It's nothing. Which, I mean, I don't know. It seems a little bit of a mean-spirited, accusing the 48 laws of being mean-spirited is kind of ironic, but it seems a little bit, I think you can, I don't know, man. I think a more balanced view is you can work with friends, of course. I think cooperation, working with friends, cooperating with friends, for sure. Why not? I don't think it always ends in disaster, and it's always a good thing to work with enemies, is it?
No, absolutely. But the thing is that people underestimate the how do I phrase that?
Value?
Well, not necessarily, but how willing even friends are to eventually screw you over for something. Now, I'm not saying every friend will do it because they probably won't, but always remember that you're dealing with human beings and most people are out for themselves.
Yes.
And when taking that into consideration, and especially for people who don't take it into consideration, you might be very disappointed finding that out from a friend who would be happy to screw you over instead of a guy who you're not even that associated with. So in an emotional sense, it's wiser not to work with friends as well. I mean, there are plenty of business stories. You know Alex Ramosi, right?
Yes.
So, and even Rich Cooper, like David brings up, even Cooper had like business partners who were friends. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, one day they just ran with a bunch of money. I mean, that would sound like a much more bigger emotional impact than somebody who's like, well, just an associate who helped with the business plan. It's like, whatever.
No, it is true. And the fact is, yes, you're right. People are mainly out for themselves, really, or basically that people are out for themselves. Now, I think there's then a varying degrees of how Machiavellian you are. I think a lot of people are probably, on the whole, fairly decent, or at least their intention is probably reasonably decent. Like, they don't particularly want to screw anyone else over. They don't particularly want to go out to damage anybody. So they're coming from a place that is all in the context of they're out for themselves, but they don't particularly want to screw somebody over. They come quite, they're quite happy to see friends succeed and stuff like that. But then when push comes to shove, if it's like the old, Titanic scene when, Jack's trying to get on the door frame or whatever, and she shoves it, it's like, what happens at that point? And probably someone's always going to act in their own interest in the end, aren't they? If it gets stress tested. So, so I don't think, but then another way of looking at it is, I think there was a writer, Gore Vidal, I think it was, who had a phrase, something like, whenever a good friend succeeds, a little piece of me dies. And there is something, I think, about people who are close to us achieving things that perhaps we're jealous of or envious of, that hurts more than if it's just some random person. Does that make sense? Because we know them, and perhaps it just highlights our own insecurities or inadequacies more, because we knew them, we're kind of on the same level, and then suddenly they're doing this and you feel like you're here. That can rankle more, can't it? And so I'm not saying then you would directly then go and try and take revenge or try and screw them over, but you can see where the motivation comes in.
But this is like one of those moments where you share successes with friends, and you get the attitude of, well, we can't all be like you, or you were just lucky. You get those remarks, and then you really start to doubt your friendship, where it's like, wait, what, aren't you happy for me? And they're more jealous than anything. Yes.
Well, I found that myself, in terms of the glittering success of the Troy Francis brand, I've had to I've changed friendships quite a lot over the years, and not just because of what I'm doing or anything like that. I think you naturally move away from certain people, you gravitate towards other people, whatever. I think it's a natural part of life anyway. But what's happened to me as I've gone more into creating online content and doing this stuff is I've ended up becoming friends more with people who are doing that and who understand that, as opposed to people who don't and who are maybe sitting around going, well, why the hell are you traveling all the time? Or you don't have a proper job, you're just talking on the internet, and who totally don't get it. And at least the people who are working in a similar space, they understand what you're doing. But then on the other hand, you're more likely to get jealousies with those people, aren't you? Because either they're doing better than you or you're doing better than them, however you want to term better. And that's where you get some of these rivalries coming into play.
Yeah, it is always a viable option that it will happen. And I think that's what GREENE, or that is something GREENE tries to say with this book. Like, it's not always going to happen, but be aware that it can happen. So if you choose to work with friends, you might be sadly disappointed by how it will end. You'll never know for certain, other than they're human and it could happen. It's like AWOL, like all women are like that, but not all women are like that. It's more every woman could be like that.
Yeah, definitely. And there is actually a dating slant on this as well, because when you think about wingmanship, often guys who are having a lot of problems in the dating field, it can sometimes be directly, or a big contributing factor to that is they're surrounded by, friends that they've had all their life or for many years. And in that friendship group, they're seen as the loser. They're seen as the guy who's no good with women. And so any attempt on his part to go and, say, make an approach and take that risk is going to get stamped on very quickly, because if he gets rejected, which he, very likely will when he's starting out, the guys in the group are just going to laugh at him and sort of push him down and say, oh, what an idiot. So it's very, very hard for guys in that friendship group to actually break out and to start to be a bit more socially adventurous, which is a real problem for people, and it was kind of a problem for me actually at one stage, until you move to a big city, you sort of make new friends and everything. And then you're seen in that different context by the new people, aren't you? They don't have that pre-background knowledge of you as being that loser at school who never, got to girls or whatever. You're just some guy. And then you can become the guy who is super social and goes and approaches, right? And then that can be your new identity. In an old hierarchy of friends, it's very hard to break out of whatever pre-existing identity you have.
And even if you, let's say, are actually capable of doing it and you are that social guy, what if they're not social? I've been in that situation where we did go out and I was just being social and things like that, and they just stood there. And I don't know about you, but I couldn't help but do have sympathy, where it's like, yeah, I'm kind of leaving them behind, and
Yeah.
it's like maybe I'm being a bit of a dick and things like that. And now I'm just kind of like, yeah, but it's not my fault that they're not social, or at least not even trying.
Yes.
It sounds very cold, but at this point I'm kind of like, yeah, I'm sorry guys, but you've seen me do it. I can do it. The only guy that's stopping you from doing this is you. So, but it's a learning process. It really is a learning process. Going out with guys who are like, well, approach anxiety gets the best of them. There you are, just opening people up randomly. You're going to have to live with the fact that, well, yeah, you can't save everybody.
Exactly. No, true. I think it's an example, though, of the way that this law can apply where people's intent is not necessarily evil or incredibly bad. Like that, the friendship group who's teasing the man who tries to approach and then gets rejected because they just, they see him. He's always been the loser, the social loser in the group, let's say. And they're not intentionally necessarily setting out to be like, I'm going to thwart his opportunities to, better himself and become a high value, confident man. It's not like, it's probably not like that. But somewhere deep down inside them, they feel threatened by somebody else making an effort and doing something that perhaps they find, makes them nervous as well. And so it's the crabs in the bucket thing. People will always refer to it like that, won't they? But it's not, I suppose it's like the intent is not necessarily malicious, but the outcome of it can be malicious. So it's not like friends are deliberately there like, right, I'm going to stab him in the back, but their actions may amount to the same thing regardless.
I mean, the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Exactly.
It's also a case of like reflecting when people start criticizing you for things. I mean, you date mostly 20-year-olds, right?
Well, in their 20s, let's say.
In their yeah, like 20 and up.
Yeah.
But not over 30. We don't do that here.
But I have done it. I'm
oh my God.
Well, only because they turned 30 when I was with them, so
Okay.
Yeah.
You get a free pass then. But like, have you ever encountered, like, even with friends, when they're like, yeah, but 20-year-olds or in their 20s, they're just not, they haven't seen much of the world. They're not that emotionally or mentally developed. Turns out they really haven't had a date in a very long time, where you're kind of like, well, how would you know with your experience with, like, say, 25-year-olds? Because the last time I checked, you didn't have any.
Well, yeah. I mean, I was talking actually to Tallulah about this yesterday. I did a video with Tallulah, which is going to go up at some point soon, from The Feminine Truth. And we were talking about exactly the same thing, actually, this thing about age gap dating and stuff like that. And yeah, for sure. I mean, there is definitely that sort of line of thinking out there. For me personally, and again, this is like, I've changed my friendship groups over the years and so on. These days, I don't tend to really spend a lot of time with people who are like that. Not because everyone I hang out with is this paragon of virtue, but more because the people I hang out with are either people who work in this sort of space, and so they probably have a similar lifestyle, or people who just don't really give a monkeys. They're not judgmental in that way. So I'm quite fortunate in that regard. But I think if I was, living in, say, a smaller town and I was surrounded by people who are a bit more conventional, let's say, then I think it would definitely be an issue for sure. And you get that kind of shaming coming in, and it's shaming that happens where the focus of it is on trying to help you. It's there's a term for this, I forget what it is, but it's concern trolling, I think is what they call it, where it's like, oh, you shouldn't do this because it's not going to be good for you and blah, blah, blah. But actually that trolling or that criticism is motivated by something that's needling the person that's giving it to you.
Never
So
thought
I'm
of
quite
it like
fortunate.
that.
I'm quite fortunate in that sense because I don't tend to get a lot of grief about that stuff. Really, it was quite funny actually. That I don't know if this story is entirely related, but I recently was dating somebody in London who was 24. Very cool girl. We met on a dating app actually, and we saw each other for a bit at the beginning of the year. Didn't carry on with it for various reasons, but very attractive girl. Had some fun times and things. And we were in this bar or this like sort of restaurant stroke lounge bar place in London, and she'd gone down to go to the toilet, and so I was sitting there on my own, and there was this group of women sitting next to us, like group of 3 women on a girls' night after work, and they were all in their sort of, I'd say later 30s probably, and they were all there drinking the wine and cackling and everything like that, and the woman who was sitting next to me, for some reason, she turned around and started to talk. I somehow got involved in the conversation, and she was saying, "Oh, these 2 are married and they got kids. They're the boring ones. I'm still out partying and all this kind of stuff." This woman was saying, and I was like, "Oh, okay, that's nice, that's cool." And she looks at me, and she's like, "Oh, so are you here on your own?" And I was like, no, I'm here with this girl. And she's like, "Oh, okay. I don't know if she was expressing interest in me or whatever, but it was kind of like she was involving me in this thing, and she didn't know I was with this girl. Anyway, then the girl comes back, and the girl is like 24 and very attractive and everything else, and you could just see this woman like sort of just looking angrily at this girl, like, "Oh, you bitch," kind of thing. It was quite amusing.
I will never. Oh man, that must have been amazing.
It was quite funny. I mean, like I say, I'm not saying that she was trying to, like, she was hitting on me or she was interested or anything, but it was certainly, I don't know, man. It was just quite a funny dynamic, when this really hot, like, sort of younger woman comes in and she's like, "Oh, fuck, all right."
I mean, it is like by default they will be annoyed by it when they see it's possible. I mean, like
she probably knew. She may not have known my exact age, but she probably knew that I was probably similar kind of age to her, older than her, whatever. So she kind of got the vibe. And then this woman who was obviously somewhat younger comes along, and it's like, okay, fine, I see where this is.
I mean, I even had something like that with a girlfriend who was 1 year younger than my previous girlfriend, and they met, and even then she was seething. Even then she got angry.
Yeah.
So it's a thing. It's just, I don't know what it is, but like women just know that everything younger, like age of consent, don't worry. Where it's like they just know that that's a threat. It's something internal or whatever. I don't know exactly what it is precisely, but they just like something gets switched on, sort of anger when they see an older guy dating a younger girl than they are. It's like, it's vicious. Vicious was what it is.
Well, again, I was talking to Luna about this yesterday, and she was saying the same thing. She was saying, women get very triggered by this age thing, and that's why the whole Leonardo DiCaprio story, where he is allegedly, I don't know if it's confirmed, dating that 19-year-old, and there was all that outcry about that the other week. And obviously, a lot of it is motivated by women who are. He got criticism from men as well, but a lot of it was motivated by women who. It obviously bugs them very much, and the underlying reason for that is because they recognise that it's kind of unfair. She's this young girl, and why is she getting this, and I'm a boss babe in my 30s, and I'm not. And it's a very uncomfortable truth. But equally, men have a lot of uncomfortable truths that they have to deal with as well. Like if. Guys also get rejected. I mean, guys get rejected the whole time for different things, not being tall enough, not having enough money, all these, whatever it is, these different things.
I've never been rejected for money though.
Well, nor have I, but you know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying. Just there are things that are arguably beyond the control of an individual that they get rejected for all the time. And it's just, sometimes we just have to suck it up. It's just part of life, isn't it?
Yeah, it kind of is. But like I said, I tend not to focus on those things. Like what the height, I just make a joke out of that. I've dated 2, maybe 3 girls who were taller than I am, and the first time I saw them, I just blatantly told them, like, I fuck taller. They just started laughing. Like, I really didn't care. Like, I knew she was like, without heels, we would be the same age. And I told her to wear the heels. I picked her up from the train station. I just looked at her. I'm like, yeah, fuck taller. She just started laughing. Just don't care. Just stop caring about those things. The money thing, I mean, I've gone on record saying I always take them out for coffee. And
yeah,
when they ask, I just tell them I live under a bridge or whatever.
No, I mean that's a whole other topic area.
Yeah,
I probably shouldn't have said money because you're absolutely right. I just trying to pluck an example out of thin air, but you're right. I mean, money is not really. I don't believe it's the issue that people make it out to be. You know,
nah, you're not wrong. You're not. I'm being a bit autistic about it because I just see so much garbage on Twitter, and maybe I should just quit Twitter for a while because by God,
I think everyone would be a lot happier if they just quit Twitter. To be honest, I mean, I think Twitter is such a toxic cesspool of nonsense. But marriage causes divorces. Women don't criticize women for going after rich men. Rich men? No, they don't go after rich men. Get off. But will criticize men for going after beauty. Slightly hypocritical. Well, yeah, I mean, you know, unfortunately, we're all attracted to what we're attracted to, aren't we? And there are certain things that are sort of inherent. You know, men in general tend to be attracted to younger women. That's not to say that, you know, guys can't deeply love their wife who they've been with for many years. She's older, and et cetera, et cetera. But, you know, when you look at that, I think it was Plenty of Fish data that came out, and it showed that men, almost regardless of their age, as they got older, they were still most attracted to women who were, I think, around 23. So, you know, it just is what it is. And women, obviously, they're attracted to status and certain attributes that men have. And, you know, we can nag the other gender until the cows come home about how it shouldn't be like that and it's not fair. But ultimately, it's not going to change it.
No, but that like the whole not fair thing, I'm kind of like, how do I phrase that? Like from an evolutionary perspective, women are the protected gender. So of course, everything is going to be biased towards women. And the reason for that is also that they need the bias towards them. And you're a guy and you're supposed to handle your shit. So either you're going to keep complaining online or you're going to handle your shit. But it's not fair. Well, I'm sorry, Buttercup. Life ain't fair. I can't help it. I'm sorry.
Well, so the whole black pill community, or whatever you want to call it, is basically a loud cry of it's not fair, isn't it?
Speaking of enemies.
Well, you know, but I mean, that's an example actually of where this law can sort of come into play, because I'm one of these people. I personally think in this space, in terms of doing collaborations, I don't really have a problem with doing a collaboration or talking to somebody who I don't agree with, if that makes sense. I don't really have a huge problem with that. I think there are people who do because they feel like it's platforming that person and so on. I personally don't really think that. I think it's okay to have conversations with people who maybe are on a different side of the thing to you. And, you know, I think actually a lot of the time those sorts of collaborations, those examples of people working together, even when maybe they're on different sides of an argument, is actually pretty good.
It can be, but I do draw the line of denying the Austrian painter scene. That's where I'm kind of like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe we shouldn't do that. But hey, whatever gets the clicks. It's like,
well, indeed. But I just mean things like talking to, say, I mean, I'm not some, you know, table thumping anti-feminist, but I mean, talking to, say, women who are feminists. Like I had this girl Pixie on the stream a couple of weeks ago, who is a, you know, devout feminist and progressive left-wing person, and she's a Twitch streamer. And, you know, I agree with some of the stuff she says. I don't agree with a lot of it, but she came on and we had a really good conversation. It was a good collaboration. So I think things like that, I wouldn't say, I mean, she's not an enemy, right? But I mean, I think things like that, where you're coming perhaps with slightly different sides of the divide. And also I'm a toxic male in my 40s and she's a woman in her 20s or whatever. And so, you know, we're coming at things from somewhat different angles, but I think you can have good dialogue and you can have, you know, and I'd probably rather do a stream with her or someone like her than I would do a show with somebody who's a dating coach, but is just a bit of an idiot, and they're not really bringing much to the party.
You do run the risk of agreeing on everything, and that can be very boring. Where it's like, yeah, I totally agree with you. Oh wow, I'm so happy you agree with me. It's like, yeah.
In terms of working with the, let's say, the women that have come into the space recently, the thing with working with them is they're women, but they tend to agree with a lot of the stuff that guys in that space will talk about, because that's why they're in the space, because they're, that's their audience. So if you do a show with someone like Ali, for example, well, I suppose you do disagree with things with Ali though, don't you?
I don't know.
I probably disagree with things with Ali, actually.
Well, it's not necessarily a disagreement, more than it is a different choice in life. Because I do agree with her when she says, I do agree with her in the fact that I think as well that for a lot of people, like, the marriage and kids will give fulfillment. I do, however, am also of the opinion that it's not for everybody.
Yes.
Where she states, like, everybody should get married and have kids. I'm kind of like, hey, there are people with mental issues and addiction issues and all kinds of other issues that maybe should not be motivated to breed. And that's okay. Or people who know of themselves, hey, I'm kind of a selfish prick and I like banging hoes. Hey, like, let them do it. Don't try to convince them, but be like, hey, but who am I kidding? I'm trying to convince a woman of nuance. That's not going to happen. I know that the most sexist thing I'll say all hour, but it's kind of true. It's like, that's solipsism 101. I did it, therefore everybody must do it. This is why you can never, and I've had this conversation a couple of times now. Lately, I'm picking my words more carefully, where you have the argument of, like, women sleeping around and guys sleeping around. And it's like, well, the reason is that women are considered, let's say, sluts when they do it is because X, Y, and Z. I'm not saying they are sluts. I'm just saying people have that. Oh, so you're saying it's like, never mind. I said nothing. So it's always choosing your words very carefully. But a lot online these days is be like me, it worked for me. And that's why I don't like podcasting with a lot of people, where I'm kind of like, look, I don't disagree with anybody. I don't even disagree with Destiny. Okay, apparently he has an open relationship. Cool. Like, you do you. I don't disagree with you. It's just not my thing.
Yes.
But I'm not going to sit here and debate Destiny about his life choices. Dude, it's your life, not mine. Do whatever the hell you want. So,
well, yeah, no, I agree with that, absolutely. I don't really care what anyone else does, to be honest. I mean, it's absolutely fine, as long as they're not, deliberately going out to harm anybody or whatever. I don't have a problem with any of these people's life choices, really. But certainly, I mean, Destiny's life choice wouldn't work for me, and I don't think Ali's would either. So, and they're at probably opposing ends of whatever spectrum. So, it's kind of like you've got to. Well, I don't know, man. I mean, I suppose, can we link this somehow sort of loosely back to the topic, in the sense that your friends, your online guru friends, are trying to convince you of certain things. Should you trust in them all the time? I mean, you see somebody online, you like them, you resonate with your content, you listen to their content, but should you trust everything they say? I mean, obviously not, right? I guess.
No, and that's that's a good one. Because then, and correct me if I'm wrong, wouldn't you be succumbing to social pressure? Where, and you and I have talked about this before, like the red meat content, where it's like, oh, do this, talk about this, because this will really help out your brand.
Yeah.
And then you can choose where you can either go with the brand or you go with yourself, where it's like, yeah, but I don't want to talk about this. Or you go with well, let's just talk about this because that will make the channel grow, and I'm kind of losing my soul here, but who cares? Well, just go with it.
Yeah. Well, interestingly, there was an Alex Hormozy video that was somewhat applicable to that, where he was saying, you have a decision in business. Do you go with the thing that's really popular because it's going to blow you up? he wasn't necessarily just talking about videos here. He was talking about whatever. But, you know, you go with the thing that's super popular, that's not really what you want to do, but you know it's going to blow your business up. So you could do that. Or you choose not to. You take the hit in the short to medium term because you haven't blown up. But what you end up with is something that is more sustainable and is kind of more reflective of you. And ultimately, probably is going to have more longevity, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. Because, well, like I said, that's the choice you have to make. Because at a certain point, you're going to make... We all start out making the content we want. And at a certain point, you get to choose, am I going to make the content I want, or am I going to make the content my viewers want?
Yes.
And even Rollo mentioned this in the beginning, where he mentioned, like, I write for what I want to write. And there are a lot of people, and who's a good example of this? Athol K. Athol K is a good example of this. At a certain point, they start writing what their audience wants. So Athol K got his wife involved in the Married Man Sex Primer. And at a certain point, more women got into that space. And it's like, oh, do you have to use that tone? And he started adjusting his tone and he started adjusting the topics. And at a certain point, every man who had any value of that space just dropped off. Just nope.
Well, yeah, it's you don't want to be too like we always say. You've got to be your own man in these things, haven't you? Or your own woman, but you've got to be your own person in these things, I think. And you've got to not be too swayed by others. But I mean, as a content creator, really, what you should ultimately be trying to do is help the people. You should be trying to help in some way, shouldn't you? I think that's what it should come down to. And if you've got a very strong agenda to say, do this because this is the right thing, are you helping people or are you just presenting a very one-sided view?
I would even go so far as, are you helping people, or do you just want to validate your own choices?
Yeah.
Because like with women, I can forgive it. I can be like, she's a girl. Of course, she's going to be like this. I'm going to pat on the head and go ahead. You be happy. Do your thing. But with guys, when I see like the Tradcons of the world and the Matt Walshes and the guy who said that don't have 4 girls in rotation and be a man and suffer your grief as a man would do, I'm kind of like, yeah, mate, I just have the feeling that you're projecting your choices on me and want me to validate your life, and that's not going to happen. If you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I suppose the disclaimer is that you can always not follow that particular content creator. So people make a choice to follow somebody like Destiny or Ali or Tate or whoever it is, and then they make a choice whether they engage with that content or not. So I suppose you could look at it like that. But I think the best way personally to share content is to talk about what's happened for you. You know, this is how it's been for me. This is what's worked. This is what hasn't worked. This is what I've done. Maybe you can take something from that. I think that's the most authentic way.
That's a very good example. A very good example, actually. Strangers online. Okay, this hear me out on this one. So remember when you were younger and you would go to your friends who didn't even have dates and you were like, dude, I really like this chick. What should I do? And they gave you the most basic, arbitrary, nonsense advice. And you were like, well, they're my friends. Of course they want to help. Or a female friend. And you were like, oh, you know what? She's a girl. She must know what girls like. And everything they told you backfired. Like I said, take enemies with a grain of salt. Interpret it more as strangers. And then you go online and you've never met these people. But what do you have to lose? Those guys are not invested in you. They don't care if you fail or win. They are just sharing their experiences. So what have you got to lose since it's already not going well? You might as well just follow some of the advice they're giving to you. And hey, if it works, chapeau. If it doesn't, back to the drawing board. But with your friends, they really want you to win. But because they want you to win so bad, it's probably they're not going to tell you what you're doing wrong to save you the embarrassment.
Well, is another way of looking at it, that the people who are your strongest critics are actually helping you out more than people who are friends and who are just kissing your butt because they like you and they don't want to make you feel bad.
Yep. Oh, I agree. Like my mom says I'm special. It's like, well, that's good for your mom to say, but you're not. And you need to work on X, Y, and Z before you get anywhere.
Well, people's mums are always going to just be in their corner, aren't they? For the most part. I mean, like my mum is just like, whatever I did, she would think it was great, pretty much. I mean, well, within the bounds of legalities, of course. But, I mean, whatever I do, she's going to think, yeah, great, great. Oh, no, great job. And that's very nice. But ultimately, sometimes you need to have a sounding board that says, no, hang on a minute, you're screwing up here, man. What the hell are you doing? And that's ultimately going to help you more, isn't it? And push you more in maybe a different direction. I think actually that's part of the Tate popularity, perhaps, because a lot of the time he was blatantly slating his audience, wasn't he? Saying, you lot are just worms. I get up at 10:30 and I have a coffee and then I have a cigar, drive my Bugatti, and you're at your slave labor job. What are you doing, you worm? You failed at life, and that kind of thing. And it was very much the sort of tough love brand of content creation, wasn't it? Where he was literally slagging off the audience. And doubtless there was some ego involved, but also with the intention of trying them to get them to get off their butt and actually take some action and shock them out of their complacency.
Yeah, it's like, whoa, this guy tells me to improve myself. This guy doesn't think I'm special. It's like an old Married Red Pill thing, although I think it's Married Red Pill. I'm not sure. Ryan, correct me on this. You ain't shit, and that's okay. Where they get the ego out of it. Because a lot of guys come up and they're like, oh, look at me. I achieved this. I achieved that. So, okay, cool. You still don't mean shit to us. Like, the thing is that you do it for yourself. And you realize that it doesn't necessarily make you better than somebody else, kind of thing. And you will never stop improving and all the things that come with that.
Exactly. I mean, you do get people who are very blunt anyway. I mean, Aaron Clary is one, isn't he? I mean, he's basically built a whole brand on being an arsehole. And obviously he's very popular. And I think people... And John MLD was like this as well, actually, where people just have this, they know that he's going to be straight with them. They may not necessarily like what he has to say, but they know that he's going to be straight with them and they admire that. And that is coming from a place of care, that is coming from a good place in the sense that, I mean, yeah, he's an arsehole, but also he's doing it to some extent with the intention of actually trying to help the people that are following him rather than just pussyfooting around the issue of being super nice to them.
Oh no, absolutely, because that won't help anybody. If you're trying to save somebody's feelings, you're not going to help them.
Exactly. I mean, how harsh do you tend to be with people that you coach or that you work with?
Not as much. What I tend to notice is that a lot of guys are harsh on themselves. Like on Twitter, I'm way harsher because I hate Twitter. But when they coach me or when I coach them, I do see it as also a helping hand where I show people the progress they've already made. Because there are guys who beat themselves up over nothing, where there's too much of that tough love.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, I can do more, I can do harder, I can do this, I can do that. And you kind of have to step on the brake for them where it's like, mate, sure, you can, but there is a resting process in this as well. There's a building up process. Just because you can work yourself to hell 6 days a week doesn't mean you should do that, because you can get perfect results with just 3 times a week. There's no need to break yourself down completely because it's a long-term thing.
Right, yeah.
And, oh, I missed one workout and I'm going to blah, blah. It's like, whoa, it's just one workout on the course of months. Missing that one workout is not going to make the whole entire process be for nothing. So that's mostly what I do with my coaching, where there's not a lot of guys who I had to be tough with. No honesty.
Yeah.
I had one And at a certain point, it just gets tiring. In all honesty, well, you have to be purposefully blunt. Where it's like, yeah, maybe, mate, I don't know what you're doing right now, but I think you're just messing with me. Where it's like, no, I need the motivation. Where it's like, yo, mate, if you need a drill sergeant, I don't know, man. Maybe I'm going to charge double or triple for that.
Yeah, I think I found myself getting more impatient as time's gone on with people, actually, and I think that's partly maybe just jadedness, and also because I don't know. It's the skill of being a good coach is partly understanding where people are at a particular point in their development, and of course, the people that come to you are not as far as you are in their development, because otherwise they wouldn't be coming to you. So you have to have some patience with people, I think, but equally, particularly in the field of dating, there are sometimes things people do, and I just think that is just, I mean, come on, man. Like, you don't need to be a dating expert to know that that is just not really a good move, you know? But I mean, it's interesting how actually, I mean, people like me, and maybe you, I think certainly more like me, who are very British and polite and sort of like don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. Oh, I'm terribly sorry, and all that. But actually, what you find is that people really respect those who are very direct and those who just tell it like it is. If you look at someone like, for example, Gordon Ramsay, who does all those restaurant programs where he just comes in and tells the person what a shithole the restaurant is, people really respect that directness and that honesty, I think. So actually, as a tactic for getting people to like you, if that makes sense, being a bit more honest and being a bit more direct can put you in a good place.
Like, one of my clients is in the chat right now, by the way, Jico. What did you mention? Like, I kick your ass when needed. Well, kind of like that. But you bring up Gordon Ramsay. It's like those cooking shows. That's also a very good example, because those restaurants could hire a friend and be like, well, you need to tell me what I'm doing wrong. No, your dishes are amazing and I don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. But instead of that, they hire an enemy, Gordon Ramsay, where it's like, that guy you paid to get your ass kicked and be honest with you. Now, if you would have hired a friend, he's not going to kick your ass. He's going to make sure you feel okay. Ramsay, on the other hand, he will tear you 3 new ones as he has to, if he has to.
Yeah, absolutely. And the good thing with Ramsay as well, I mean, I'm not a massive fan, but I've seen that show enough time. And the good thing with Ramsay is that actually he is coming ultimately from a good place, because he does want to see these people succeed. And he could completely, as you say, rip them a new arsehole during the process. But often by the end, they will have a much improved restaurant, a much improved business, and they all kind of end up friends in the end, because it's like, oh, you finally did the thing that I needed, which was actually to tell me what, you know, to sit down with me and just give it to me straight. So, yeah, we're going in a slightly different direction with this, really. But I think when you're considering being a friend to other people, actually part of being a friend sometimes is being honest and being direct and just telling it how it is, as you see it.
Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, I've told friends they got too fat. Wasn't the most pleasant thing to do, but somebody had to do it. It's like, hey, you lost all this weight, you gained it back. I mean, what the fuck are you doing? I was like, it's not helping. But you always feel, it always feels heavy. You know what I mean? It's like, it's always a bit of a burden where it's like, I don't want to do this. Because you don't want to blow up the friendship either, but it's like, dude, nobody's telling you what you need to hear. You know what? Fuck it. We'll do it.
Yeah.
And then you have that moment of silence where it's like, okay, I'm either never going to see this guy again, or he's going to take my advice. It's like, which one is going to be?
Can you ever think of I'd put you on the spot now. You probably can't for the purposes of the show. I'm not sure I can really. But I mean, can you ever think of an example of when somebody who, you know, was an enemy, or at least was somebody who you didn't normally see eye to eye with, gave you some help or kind of gave you a good bit of advice or something like that? I'm just trying to think.
Let me see.
So it's all about preparation, guys. This is
that's
preparing before the show, guys. This is how we do it.
I know we had technical difficulties with all kinds of things. Like, is my connection even okay? Like, am I coming through all right?
Okay, I think. Well, I think in a small way, and maybe I don't have a single example of this, but I think I certainly have learned things from critics. You know, people who've been and working in this space. Obviously, you get a lot of people who slate you and haters and things like this. And a lot of that stuff is nonsense. You know, they're just venting, and it's more about them than it is about you. But equally, I think I have learned some things from some of those comments over the years, and there are things that you take on board, because if somebody, and you get obviously varying degrees of haterness as well, don't you? You do get some people, often the most annoying ones, who are sort of, they're not really a hater, but they're just saying, hey, bro, if you did this, it might make it better. And like, oh, fuck off. But I think I have learned some things from that. And even from people maybe who are being harsh, but you sort of think, oh, you know, it's annoying, and they're out of order, but there is some element of truth in that. And then maybe you look at it and you do take something on board.
Mm-hmm. No, you're right. I mean, I'm thinking about haters, but thank the Lord, I don't have a lot of haters. No, honesty. The only hater I really got was a couple of guys.
What about that Moose guy? Does he not hate you?
I don't know. I hope not. I had him a couple of times in my chat, and what was it? He started talking about Kevin Savo. And what I thought about him, and I kind of nipped that in the bud, where I told him, like, Moose, if you're looking to create beef, you're on the wrong channel, man. It's like,
yeah,
it's like, I, for a hobby, collect shiny cardboard and plastic building blocks. Like, it's not going to be for me.
Yeah,
like, piss off. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't think I'm not the guy who agitates a lot of people. At least I hope not. And if I do, I don't know. I don't know, what more do you want? But I had a couple of guys commenting on videos where, why are you hosting this person, or why are you hosting that person? I'm kind of like, yeah, look, if you don't like it, don't watch it. Or, oh, the meaning of praxeology, you two got that wrong, and here's my explanation of the word praxeology, and I didn't even read it. I'm like, go with God, have fun. So, yeah.
So this guy here, David says, I don't understand this. Are you purpose if you don't have a girlfriend that cooks for you, Jack? Is that a reference to your tweet about...
Yep, that was my tweet yesterday. And I saw you retweeting that, but I am getting so sick and tired of these guys who probably, most definitely, I think, are overweight or whatever. And they start saying, well, I want a girlfriend who provides value and cooks for me and cleans for me and this and that. And I'm sitting here like, does she suck dick? Okay, I'm fine. I can cook my own meals. I can clean my own room. I'm an adult. The only thing I'm not flexible enough for is that. So, cool.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that, really. I find it a little bit... I don't know, man. There's just something a bit cheesy about it, really. So, oh yeah, I'm looking for a good woman. She cooks, she cleans. It's like, come on, man. What are we reenacting Little House on the Prairie here? I mean, like, basically, like, before we even get anywhere near thinking about that, I'm thinking about, well, does she look good in a sundress? You know, and how about we go on a trip to Paris together? Like, I don't give a damn. You know, I'm going to eat out most of the time. I prepare, you know, basic meals for myself anyway. It's not a big deal. It's not a prerequisite for me. And I think if you're thinking that in the early stages, it sounds like you're looking at dating through the prism of a very domesticated prism, which is not how I like to look at dating. I like to look at dating through a fun, sexual, exciting prism, not like, oh, who's going to prepare the stew for next week? You know, it's like, come on, man. It's like you know.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of where I go overboard with my tweets, just the most extreme other side that I can think of. But like I said,
it just sounds like the kind of thing that some American do with cargo shorts and, you know, you know, kind of desert boots. Where it's, I want a woman who cooks and cleans. And it's just like, come on, man. You know, where's the passion? Where's the excitement? Where's the, you know, like, you know, we're not like before we get anywhere near to that kind of thing happening. I mean, that's a long way down the line for me, because that implies that you guys are, well, for a start, seeing each other regularly. Maybe you're living together, or at least she's coming around. You know, it implies a degree of domestication, which, for a start, rather repels me. And secondly, I'm not even thinking of until at least 18 months down the line. Like you say, I mean, in the first instance, all you're thinking is, does she look cute? has she got a passport? Is she good to travel? And does she look good in a miniskirt? You know, really. I mean, that's kind of what it comes down to, isn't it? Oh, and can she discuss Simone de Beauvoir as well?
Exactly. Has she read Dostoevsky?
Does she have a PhD? But yeah, I'm not thinking about like, oh, does she, you know, like, is she good at domestic chores? Because I mean, that would imply that I want to get into a domestic situation with her. And I mean, the hell would I want to do that?
But you know what bothers me so much about that as well is every time I hear a guy say that is I just know, or I get that hunch he doesn't get it. And what I mean by that is, you know this, the longer you hang out with a girl, the more she's going to do for you. So when I hear a guy say, I want a woman who does X, Y, Z for me, I'm kind of like, dude, you're not going to find her, and you should know this. Because when you first meet somebody, to hell with you if you're going to make like demands from her, because she doesn't know you. That domestication chores thing, that's going to come with investment. The more invested she is, the more she wants to do for you.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, look, obviously I've had girlfriends who have cooked for me and have cleaned, because I mean, I'm damned.
Oh my God.
Damned if I'm going to clean up. No, but you know, like when I like with say my ex and another girl I was dating, you know, a while back. I mean, yeah, it got to the stage where I'd be staying over, you know, a couple of times a week, maybe several times a week, and you know, she'd make me breakfast, she'd make dinner sometimes, and things like this. And yes, it is very nice. It is very nice to wake up, and although. I think I did some content about this one time. I had this girlfriend, and she would make me. I don't really eat breakfast now. You know, I'm a little bit like not quite OMAD, but I'm a little bit like I'm more like near 16:8 or whatever it is. You know, like I try not to eat until later in the day. And she would make me these huge breakfasts, and she'd come in and say, "Oh, you want something else? I could do you something else if you want. I could do you something." I'm like, "No, just stop making the fucking breakfast." You know, but nevertheless, it is of course very pleasant to have somebody attending to you like that and caring for you and everything. But it's also a little bit, I mean, come on, we're men, aren't we? We're meant to be men. Like, are you really that bothered about the domestic niceties? Like now, I live on my own. I don't have anybody making me breakfast. Well, so what? I'm a big boy. I can, do you know what I mean? Like it's quite.
I have a microwave, damn it.
No, but I don't know. There's just something a bit sort of babyish about, I need to be looked after. It's like, well, I don't fucking need to be looked after, you know?
Yeah, that's kind of the sense I get from it as well. Maybe we're exaggerating a bit, but it's like, it's more the guys who say it, where I'm kind of like, look, first focus on if a girl wants to like get down with you, and maybe when you have that in order, then you can focus on, does she want to cook for you?
Yeah, and to be honest, even 2 or 3 years in, the getting down with me bit was far more important than the fact that she might make a bit of breakfast or might, you know, cook the odd meal here and there. Like, it just wasn't like for me. But then I'm not really, and I think I've heard you saying something like this as well. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm a little bit of a food is fuel kind of a guy, really. Yep. And that's not to say, yes, I like nice restaurants. Yes, I will go out and have fancy dinners and things from time to time because it's a pleasant thing to do. I'm not really that fucking bothered, though, to be honest. Do you know what I mean? Like, I would eat the same thing every day. I'd eat the steak I do the steak and eggs diet, no problem. You know, like, I don't really care that much. And again, it seems a bit soft to be like, oh, you know, does she cook? Does she, you know, and all this, like, does she cook these, you know, like, it's like, come on, man. Just man up and buy like 7 steaks and put them in the frying pan I mean, like, what's the problem?
Yeah, exactly. And then, like, even if she starts cooking for you, you have to explain, or at least in my case, where indeed I do the OMAD thing and the steaks and eggs thing. And most girls follow like the governmental dietary advice, and they're like, "Oh, you only eat meat? Isn't that unhealthy?" It's like, no, dear, it's not unhealthy. And then you have to explain that. And why do you only eat once a day? It's like, because I enjoy that more, and blah 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 blah. But it's not. And let me make my own food.
There's also the danger. I mean, I also had a girl living with me for a while, some years ago, and she would cook, not amazingly well, but she would cook, and she would cook these incredibly stodgy, sort of carb heavy, calorific kind of meals, and then you've got that problem as well, because then it's like, well, I don't want to eat all of this, and you do wonder sometimes. There's the old thing about, is she sabotaging you? Is she actually trying to make you put on weight so that you become less attractive? Blah blah blah. I don't know if it was that or not, but it's like, you get the opposite. She's like, they're cooking too much for you. It's like, no, stop cooking, get out of the kitchen.
Yep.
Get the sundress off, put some shoes on.
I had a girlfriend like that once. It was actually pretty funny. She was half Brazilian. And I can't even remember exactly how it went. I got some groceries, and I just started making dinner, and all of a sudden, mind you, this is a 5'4" girl. I'm 6 foot. All of a sudden, like, the kitchen door opens, and she just runs in, and she just pushes me out the kitchen. She's like, "You will not take my job from me." It's like, what? She just pushed me out, closed the door, started continuing with dinner. It's like, what?
I mean, I sometimes jokingly ask about it with girls, particularly if they're from, like, Eastern Europe or Latin America. It's like, oh, so you're a good cook and all this, as if I'm screening them. But I mean, the reality is, I don't really give a monkeys, to be honest. Do you think that it's because a lot of men are just a bit wet, really, that they're just worried about being like, oh, I need someone to look after me and make sure the home's nice and that she cooks for me and everything? Isn't it just a bit like, I mean, you wouldn't get James Bond worrying about if some woman can cook for him or not, would you? Do you know what I mean? It just seems a little bit emasculated somehow.
Yeah, I think just too many guys have read, like, Tradcon articles or whatever, and they think that's the thing they need to screen a woman for. It's like, no. The only thing I care about these days is she DTF? That's all I care about. Is she thin and DTF? Well, and the rest comes later. I've had a very pleasant second date last night, and the only thing I care about now is, are we going to get a third date that was the same thing as the second date? All I care about. So, and the whole ladder thing will come as it goes.
You've ingratiated yourself to our feminist audience very well there.
In what sense? I indeed commend and advocate for women's liberation. They have given us the best thing ever: promiscuity.
No, absolutely. Yeah, no arguments. Where's the lie, as the kids say these days? Anyway, well, look, we've done an hour now, and we've sort of veered on and off the topic, but it's been quite a good chat actually about various things. I'm glad we've got this cooking thing out in the open, because I think it's something that needs to be talked about more. Never put too much trust in friends. Learn how to use enemies. I mean, again, just a very tentative link with the subject matter. But if your girl's cooking for you every day and she's cooking like big carb heavy meals and stuff, is she really your friend, or is there an element, even subconscious, of her trying to sabotage you a little bit there? Do you know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
You put on a few pounds. You don't look as good when you go out around town. She has less competition anxiety. So you've got to be mindful of when something looks like a good deed being done for you. Is it actually in your best interests, whether the person intends that or not?
Well, exactly. Be open to the possibility that even your friends are able to screw you over.
Exactly. Even your nearest and dearest.
Yes. Even family.
And they probably will. And on that note, Pepsistoma says too much individualism isn't good either. I don't know. I think individualism is pretty good. I think it's the only thing that we've got, really. What do you think, Jack?
Well, that comment smells like communism to me.
Exactly. Okay. Well, on that note, I see that you've put the link for the spot in your program there. But what have you got coming up in the next week or so?
Other than that, I'm going to continue with the Create Your Own Program video series, and I'm going to tone it down a bit with the live streaming. I need to, how do I phrase that? Kind of need to find my jam again with the topics and the presentation, things like that. I'm going to continue with this one. Red evening tonight, tomorrow morning, depending on where you live. Not sure if there's going to be one. Rob is out and about, and I'm going to be out and about as well. So we'll see what happens there. I do still have a membership stream every Sunday, Q&A. So if you go to my channel, click the join button, you will get access to weekly Q&As, my version of the Book of Book audiobook, and the exercise performance course for free. And of course, then the weekly Q&As, but that's about it. And of course, the spot for my coaching program, where you will get a personalized training program, diet plan, weekly forum checks, a private Discord, and monthly consultations with the other members. So yeah.
Fantastic.
How about you?
Packed offering. Well, I've got videos coming up all next week. I am launching CAD Academy again at the end of the month. So from the 29th of March till the 2nd of April, CAD Academy is going to be open for new enrollments. CAD Academy, if you don't know, is my coaching program for teaching you basically how to go from absolute zero in terms of dating to hero. It will take you through everything that you need to know about becoming that super attractive, high value, but slightly dark triad guy that you need to be in order to ace it in the modern dating environment. It's a pre-recorded video course, but we will also have a bunch of live webinars, which will take place in early April. So that's going to be coming up. Look out for more details on my channel. If you're not subscribed to my channel, please do. Get on my free email list. You'll see links to it on the channel underneath this video on my channel. And yeah, more on CAD Academy coming up very soon, but it's going to be open, as I say, for new enrollments at the end of the month, 29th of March to the 2nd of April. And also, yeah, you can get my books at $39 as well at the moment. Collection of 11 books, Renegade Dating Blueprint. You'll see the link below.
Nice.
Okay. Thanks very much, Jack. Thanks,
you
Troy,
too,
because we're on each other's channels. And we will talk again. Oh.
Super chat, Juando for $2.
That's just come in.
How would you apply this law in a corporate environment? You have more experience with that than I do.
Well, I don't know really. I mean, it's good to get people that oppose you on side. You know, if you've got somebody that you feel doesn't particularly like you in the company, but there's a chance to work on a project with them, that can be a valuable thing to do, because you might end up becoming friends with them and then you've neutralized them. There's an example of that in the chapter. Who was it? It was somebody, was it Nixon or somebody, who there was a group of people who were out to kidnap the president of the USA, and the plan was thwarted. But privately, without telling his security, he arranged a meeting with, I mean, it sounds crazy, with the kidnappers. And
Kissinger.
Kissinger, yes. And actually sat down with the actually sat down with the kidnappers and had a good chinwag with them. And they ended up sort of becoming friends. And one of them became friendly with him for many years afterwards. So, and he neutralized the threat, and he also pulled more allies onto his side. So I would say from that point of view, I've had instances in corporate work where you've got somebody you think, oh, he's, you know, I don't think he's quite on my side. I'm not sure that person quite likes me. But then if you can get a chance to work together, then through that, you can iron out some of those things, and that can put you in a better position. So I definitely say, have a look at doing that if you can.
No.
And yeah, he says, show them you have more in common than they might think. But also as well, in corporate work, you know, just be wary of the people that you are friendly with. Because as we said at the beginning of the show, I mean, ultimately, in the end, everyone's out for themselves, really. And friendship only goes so far. If the shit hits the fan and somebody's got to maybe stab the knife in the back in order to not get stabbed themselves, then they're probably going to do it. So just be very wary of everybody in that environment, even if you're super friendly with them. Just have that little degree of distance, because it is work, you know? I mean, as much as we make great friends at work, it's still work. So just, and it is a bit of a battlefield, so just bear that in mind.
Yep. No, I fully agree. And take the opportunity to work with non-friends, not per se enemies. Like I said, take that word with a grain of salt, but tend to be flexible in that, and not always be bound to just the people you know.
Well, me and Jack hate each other, really, but we're doing this show for you know, to keep each other on side, so that one of us doesn't like destroy the other's channel. So
I'm the only one of Rule Zero in the same time zone, at least partially in the same time zone as Troy. Exactly. Nobody else wants to get up.
Exactly. Good stuff. All right, we'll see you guys again very soon. Bye-bye.